man. You need to buy yourself a gun. What? Gun? What? Like a handgun. For personal protection. What if somebody tries to mug you? What? What if your government tries to throw you in a can? What? You're gonna want a shotgun. Oh. What? One automatic rifle. And a lot of ammo. Gun?
We're all set to riot. Buy a gun before you lose your Second Amendment. Buy a gun. They'll burn you out like a Waco. They'll stick your ass in a camp. 10-foot cops in riot gear gonna kick your ass and laugh. The revolution is on its way. Better lock and load your AK. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. We're all set to riot. Buy a gun before you lose your Second Amendment. Buy a gun. Go gave your money to the banksters. They stole your pension funds. It's time that we took to the streets. It's time we had our turn. A revolution is on its way, and the founding fathers would say, buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Revolution's not clean and neat, you gotta riot in the streets. Revolution's not clean and neat, you gotta drag them through the streets.
It is Tuesday. We are live. This is PrimerTime on UCY.TV. My name is Michael, and I am an angry American.
My name is Nicholas, and I am voting for Dwayne Elizondo Hector Camacho in 2016.
It is what the people crave, baby.
I tell you what, that is about where we're headed right now.
Well, I think we should preface this by saying that, or preface tonight's show by saying that it appears that America has changed again, and the focus of conversation in this country has changed again. We are now in, for all intents and purposes, kind of like almost an active war on terror in the homeland.
Well, ISIS has shown up in more than a few cities in the United States, and by ISIS I mean people who are sympathetic and being caught with materials on their persons, dead or alive. But point of the matter is that anybody who was treated to that 14-minute oratory speech from the president probably had more questions leaving it than going into it, because
I think that's absolutely accurate. I was stunned by it. I mean, there was a lot of build up to this speech, and a lot of speculation among gun owning Americans and firearms enthusiasts as to what the content of this speech. I was truly kind of having a feeling he was going to outlaw the import of firearms and ammunition.
Well, see, and this is the thing. You and I were going back and forth in a conversation while this was going up to it. To set the stage, the actual speech was supposed to have occurred a day earlier, and for whatever reason, the president's staff changed the time and went from Saturday evening to Sunday evening to take advantage of the primetime TV crowd, and knowing that folks would be pretty much focused on Sunday night football, and he wanted to get his 2 cents in, and quite predictably enough, it came down to the point that this is the same guy that started out a couple months ago saying that we really don't have a plan to confront ISIS. He called them the JV squad. And my all-time favorite quote was, just because you put on a Kobe Bryant jersey doesn't make you the Lakers. So, that I think we've seen an evolution in terms of his ability to grasp the situation there.
Well, and see, I don't even think it's necessarily his ability to grasp, because I think he's fully well aware of what what's going on. What I think it is a change in the propaganda.
Well,
Now
see,
that
here's where I disagree with you on that. Because if you truly understand the threat, you wouldn't say the things that he says. And by what I mean by understanding the threat, you would actually want to attend your intelligence daily briefings. I read those every day. He does not. And I'll tell you, honestly, there's quite a few instances that he has attempted to pull the wool over the American public's eyes in terms of what we're actually facing and what we're actually dealing with. And he goes so far as to lecture Americans and wag his finger at the average citizen, saying that you don't need a firearm. You are perfectly capable of accepting the victim role, but not him. And I think predictably enough, he spent 4 or 5 minutes talking about what was readily available and evident to anybody that has half a brain, that this was a terrorist act. This was something that every single one of those people who was shot and killed, and even those who weren't in the same area, they were terrified that somebody was doing something. And I think it's disingenuous for him to sit there and say, you know, we don't know. And then 2 days later, the FBI comes out and says, well, yeah, this was an act of terror. And, oh, by the way, what do you mean that the media has gone through the house?
Well, and see, this is kind of what I'm getting at, that where I feel that it's more propaganda from him. He really didn't say anything during the meeting, or during the state, I guess would be a State of the Union address, an emergency address. I don't even know what it's called. He didn't say anything of any sort of import. It was all kind of like a rehashing of like campaign slogans to me, is what it seemed like.
Yeah, and the interesting thing was, you know, while he did go and jump right into the gun control, you know, Congress needs to pass meaningful common sense gun legislation. The thing that I think was a real big takeaway from that was that he attempted to say that anybody who is on the terrorist no-fly list shouldn't be allowed to purchase a gun. Well, the interesting thing about that is that the terror no-fly list is notoriously inaccurate.
There's babies on it.
There's 3-year-olds and 18-month-olds who are on the terror no-fly list, as well as members of Congress. So by that rationale,
88-year-old grandmas, there's no rationale to that list. The list is purely arbitrary. There's no standards to it, and on top of that, it's private.
Well, I will tell you this, as somebody who has had to deal with this list, the standards are not arbitrary. The standards have to go through something called analytic integrity standards. So whatever the nominating agency is that says, hey, we want this guy on the no-fly list, there is a series of justifications that have to be done. The average citizen is not going to see that, but by virtue of my position, I do. So I can tell you that exists.
My question for that then is how do journalists get on the no-fly list? Journalists who are exposing maybe some sort of wrongdoing by the government, or some sort of nefarious shit that takes your money. And
that's easy. That's easy enough. That's what we call retribution.
Okay, so if this list is full of retribution and in my mind, really just subjective criteria, it's got no qualifications. It's got no bearing on anything. You know, it's the equivalent of a fourth grade naughty list. You know.
Well, yeah. Well, Michael, hey, I want to take a second. We got a guest with us tonight. You want to go ahead and do an introduction?
Yes, she's a wonderful friend of the show. It's the one, the only, the captain. It is Marcus. Come on.
How you doing, guys?
Doing good. Good to have you on tonight. How you been?
Oh, just great. Thanks for having me on. Always great to be on with you guys.
No problem. We enjoy having you. Congrats to you and your boy. I heard you guys got some good bucks the last couple weeks.
Oh, sure did, man. Sure did. Had a great time. I got lucky enough to shoot one with my bow, and my son shot one with his rifle. First weekend we've ever been on a trip like that where we both shot real nice bucks on the same trip. So that was awesome. Really, really nice.
That is
awesome. You know, he's fixing to move out of the house now. You know, he's a young man fixing to move out on his own, and so I'm really enjoying spending all the time I can hunting with him here this season. That's for sure.
That's good. And when does your general season end for whitetail deer in Texas?
Man, I want to say it's like the second week of January. I'm not for sure, but I think it's the second week of January.
So yeah, we're about there with you. We end up on the first week. We actually close down General Firearms on the 2nd of January. So it'll be a long winter without deer hunting after then.
Yep. And we also have a special spike in doe season late there too. I think there's a couple weeks of just spike and doe season on the end of it too. So
Oh, that's awesome. We call that driving down the highway in Virginia. So as a matter of fact, this morning I was on my way to go do some good Army training at 6:30 in the morning, and one of the most interesting sights I've seen. There was a vehicle that had been traveling down the road, pulled off to the side, and it looked like they had just struck a deer. And as I'm coming up on them, I'm slowing down because I see their flashing lights off the side of the road. And lo and behold, there's a white-tailed deer standing in the middle of the intersection, and I literally pull right up to it, roll down my window, and try and scare it out of the road. And it was like in a catatonic trance. It would not move. And I'm wondering if he just was he suffered some post-traumatic stress by watching his buddy get obliterated by a Nissan Pathfinder. But that was an interesting
I'm
thing.
guessing that Nissan Pathfinder probably took a little bit of damage as well. Those aren't super stout trucks.
No, and it was actually on the rear quarter panel. So I think that was a what Fox News used to call a homicide bomber. This was a homicide buck. He tried to take out that Nissan Pathfinder, and I think it didn't end up well for him. So, but no, I mean we've got a lot of good news to get to. Quite a few interesting things have occurred in the firearms realm of the universe, and I sense that there's been a disturbance in the force.
I think that's understating it a little bit. I think I really would like to say that the bell has gone off for a lot of people. That this recent incident in San Bernardino, and we could even go back to the incident that happened in Colorado. There's just details to these stories that don't make any sense, and not only don't make any sense, they're completely contradictory to the original reports, to the radio traffic that was going on it. And for God's sake, when you walk the press, like 50 people from the press, walk it through a crime scene. Nick, we were having a discussion about this the other day, and Gringo, we had a discussion about this. Who fucked up? Who forgot to put the list of, okay, we need to have a cop sitting in front of this building until it's all said and done?
Well, see, here's the thing that I get. You've got many different police jurisdictions and federal law enforcement, because it wasn't just the FBI that was in there. I believe Homeland Security was in there. Also, ATF was in there. I want to say that they actually said the DEA was involved. So, you got about 4 or 5 different federal agencies on top of the county sheriff and the police department.
Yeah, and they said there was 300 officers involved, right, from just local agents.
So,
I mean, they were. I listened to the scanner of it. They were pulling school cops. They were pulling the golf course guards. They were pulling everybody to the thing.
So the interesting thing is that while it took those different police jurisdictions less than 48 hours to board up the residence that those terrorists decided to vacate without paying their damn deposit. It took them less than 48 hours to board up that dwelling. The individual location where the shootings were held, that's actually still considered an active crime scene, whereas you would think
they're all a crime scene,
right? You would think that whether it is the residence, whether it is somewhere that they've gone, because there was also another residence that the couple had previously occupied, and I believe is currently inhabited by a person of Filipino descent, because the license plate was plainly visible on a few of the different TV feeds that I read, and it's a Filipino term for somebody who is a native Philippine Islander. So for that California license plate that's out there, I feel bad for you because now you're known as the house that had what was called a forced entry by ATF agents.
Well, not only the forced entry, but Nick, they found the bomb factory.
And I'll tell you this:
right?
when dealing with these types of folks overseas, we find a bomb factory. That becomes a priority training ground for a JDAM missile. So, granted, we can't do that here in the States, although we're probably not that far off. It's quite interesting that they could consider a active IED factory completely processed within 48 hours. And when the news reporters actually asked the FBI representative, his name is Mark Bowditch, his designate, that was it okay for people to be actually going through, and what was his opinion on the news media being able to go through the residence, it was like the deer in the headlights. It was like the same thing I saw on the road today, just the guy had a badge and a slick haircut.
Well, I think his answer was a cover your ass answer. We meant to do that. I totally meant to knock over that old lady in the grocery line.
Yeah.
I was just answering. I was part of the act, right? No,
Look,
I'm
going to sit here and think that these folks, it's literally amateur hour. They had no idea that the news media had basically broken and entered in, because from all accounts.
But it's not amateur hour. This is the problem. It's not amateur hour. These are highly paid, highly skilled professionals. These are the ones that are the only ones qualified to carry a firearm in the United States, according to
we don't want you to show us the shotgun.
Right. So it's not amateur hour. There's standards and there's procedures. When you hear the news saying that there was 300 local officers there, well, that doesn't mean 300 guys with guns, actively shooting at these guys or chasing them around. There's a good deal of those people there that are there for administrative duty. They're the people with the clipboard, running the checklist, running basically what we call standing orders, right? In the medical field, you call them standing orders. This is what you do standard when this patient gets here. Well, they've got the same thing for the police department and the FBI. This is what you do when you have an active bomb scene and an active shooter scene. Step one, you put a cop in front of the front door to keep that crime scene intact.
Well, not only that,
that's not something you miss.
Every bit of evidence that could have been possibly gleaned, there was absolutely no way that it could have been processed in that time. Because when the news media walks in and is holding up documents that are vital, such as Social Security cards,
IDs, banking,
exactly, everything, even things that were shredded. We have this wonderful invention. It's called Scotch tape. And yes, if you don't think that there's enough people in the FBI with free time on their hands to recreate those documents from those little strips and sheds.
Well, if they don't have the free time, they'll get the overtime.
Exactly, and it'll be on your expense. So the point of the matter is that this investigation, if you can even call it that at this point, anything that would have been of value is now contaminated. And
well, see, I choose to not call it an investigation, Nick, because it's truly not. Okay, so this I was listening to it. I missed like about an hour and a half's worth of coverage right when that the rampage by the reporters happened.
Yeah, which is actually considered breaking and entering. It's
all kinds of stuff. It's all kinds of crimes that they really wanted to pin it on. If it was me who had done it, well, I'll tell you what, I'd be underneath the jail right now.
Yeah, I mean, and you look at the guy who ripped the plywood off the doors. Apparently, he was either the landlord or the property owner. In his opinion, he was bum rushed by the news media, who just barged in immediately after he was able to remove the plywood. And it was very interesting that CNN and MSNBC immediately ran that they had been given permission to enter the dwelling, whereas the gentleman said, I didn't give anybody any permission to get in there.
Absolutely. And immediately after that occurred, the narrative changed. That's when we started finding out that during the shooting rampage, the woman had stopped to, post on Facebook on a different name, right? That's when during that moment, that's when she decided to, send her love and adoration to Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, a probable Mossad agent. And that's when they decided to do it. And after the evidence is all destroyed and there's no possible way to have any sort of truth, that's when ISIS sends out a tweet saying that, yes, there are followers. Yeah, no, this is bullshit. It's a setup. And now any story can be given with, hey, we had the evidence. This is a secret event. I'm honest to God dumbfounded by this, and I'm truly hoping that this wakes people up to this is not real. I do not believe this is real. I mean, I'm going to say that, yeah, I believe people die, but I don't believe it's anything like the press is saying.
Yeah, I think that there's quite a bit still to be learned. Like I said, I've got absolutely no faith in anybody that's involved with the conduct of this investigation. And I think that what this literally does is this paints every organization that was involved in this in a very negative light. And, to hear the president's response to this X number of days later, when originally, if you remember, both the president and Hillary Clinton came out immediately with gun control messages.
Bernie Sanders came out with gun control messages. Martin O'Malley came out with gun control messages. The usual crowd plus the Democratic candidate came out with gun control messages. I will say that I find it interesting, and I do not play into the left-right paradigm thing, but I will say it was interesting that the Republicans came out and said, hopes and prayers for the families and the victims in this, and the other side immediately took it to the attack.
Yeah, the funny thing is that I think that when you look at it, that's not a surprise. When the Democrat Party has to try about 8 different times to get the word God into their platform, I don't think it's a surprise that they come down hard on somebody who's offering prayers for the souls of those who are deceased and their family members. What I do think is interesting, though, is that time and time again, we've seen people go off and make a statement regarding a situation that turns out to not have anything to do with what the actual cause is. We saw this with the president immediately upon the arrest of Henry Louis Gates Jr., the college professor who was arrested in Cambridge, Massachusetts, after the president said the Cambridge police acted stupidly when in fact the Cambridge police was doing their job exactly right.
This is the beer summit guy.
Yeah. And when it comes out that the scenario doesn't play out the way that the president wanted, I think that was genuinely the first time he had a little bit of egg on his face. And he had to host that beer summit because, law enforcement now says, you don't have our back. Look at the response to the Baltimore riots. Same thing. And when it comes out that he decided that he said, why should we make it easy for the people to have any kind of assault weapons? Here's the bottom line, folks. Anytime you hear that term assault weapon, think to yourself, select fire military system. If you truly want to have an assault weapon, that thing better need to have a 3-round burst capability or a fully automatic setting. And if it doesn't have any of those, it's not an assault rifle. So,
well, this is part of the reason why I wanted to have Marcus come on tonight. He said something that I truly agree with. I hadn't actually kind of thought it out, but Gringo, you had said that this is the polarizing issue for the country. And if you could kind of expand on that for a minute, I think it was a really good point and absolutely vital to this discussion that we're having tonight.
Well, most certainly this is the polarizing issue. It's the one thing that'll make people jump off the fence. They're either for or against, and there's no middle ground where might be a lot of issues people can, I don't really care one way or the other. This is the one thing that everybody's got to pick a side, either really for or really against.
So, Gringo, what do you think is the reason for it to be such a polarizing issue? I mean, what do you, as compared to some of the other things that we've had happen recently, whether it's the shootings in Paris, whether it's the attempted stabbing on a train going from Brussels to Paris, I mean, what makes this the catalyst, whereas all the other incidences beforehand weren't?
Man, that's a good question. I can't really pin it down other than just the spin they're putting on it. That how many media outlets have come out and said, "Hey, if some of those people would have been carrying concealed weapons, the victim number could have been lessened here." I haven't seen any of those, and granted, I haven't been following all the mainstream media stories, but yeah, I watch see a lot of headlines, and I definitely haven't seen that happen. And there has to be other people that feel like I do, that, man, one or two people in that crowd carrying concealed could have lessened what happened there. I mean, much less if you've got 15 or 20% of the people in that room are carrying concealed. That changes things immensely, even if it's just a .22 pistol.
But here's the interesting thing, and I think you're on to something there, Captain. The location where that took place was a county building. And any county building almost across this country is a gun-free zone. So when it comes down to it, this, as I've seen probably about 15 minutes before we went live, this was probably not the first time that these individuals attempted to do something like this. The AP came out and said that they had probably attempted to do something like this in 2012. However, they aborted the plans for an unspecific reason. So,
well, okay, now I'm going to give you, from listening to the scanner live as it happened, real early into this, and I'm telling you, I got the scanner like 2 minutes after it happened, and as it was called, I heard cops going there, but it was about 12-15 minutes into the event, and the shooter's name came up, and and this was San Bernardino PD speaking, that they had some information from LAPD about this guy, and apparently he had been under investigation by LAPD prior to this.
So here's the interesting thing, is that California, or the People's Republic thereof, has the most stringent gun laws in the country. You can't have certain firearms in the state. Every firearm must be registered with local law enforcement, background checks. Everything that is a gun control advocate's wet dream actually occurs in California. And yet, here we go. We have somebody who legally purchased firearms and utilized them in the commission of a crime. So, realistically, I'd love to hear from Jerry Brown. I'd love to hear from Nancy Pelosi, Barbara Boxer.
Well, and it's not just the firearm that can do it. And
that's the thing.
I don't remember the year, but in New York, it's just a tool of convenience.
Right.
In New York, the Happy Land
with an assault knife. If they were able to do it with an assault butter scraper, they would have done it. These people are sick.
Yeah, at the Happy Land Social Club fire, I don't remember what year it was in New York. A guy did it with $1 worth of gas and a leather belt.
Yeah,
and he killed 89 people or something like that. So
even
people are going to
New York,
kill
where
people.
you have the New York City subway stabbings by the Ukrainian immigrant with the 8-inch kitchen knife. I don't remember hearing His Honor Bloomberg call for common sense knife control.
Give him time. Give him time.
I think that what you're going to see here is this. I think that the average time for police to respond to 911 calls in this country is roughly between 10 and 13 minutes.
It's 23 minutes.
I saw a stat today that was 10 minutes, and it was from the U.S. Sheriff's Association. They said that their average response is between 10 and 13 minutes. The earliest response they have is 9 minutes. I will be willing to bet that those individuals did not spend more than 8 to 10 minutes inside that facility shooting people up. Hence the reason they were able to get away. Here's my point. I hear a lot of people talking about, we need to have active shooter training and we need to really understand how to react. Well, folks, the point is simple. If you arm yourself, you are less likely to become a victim than the person who is unarmed. And just like Captain said, if there were one or two concealed carry holders there, I would be willing to bet that had they had the training and they had the fear that they may actually perish, that they would at least defend themselves and attempt to prevent any more killing. We've heard some things in the news today. We've got Jerry Falwell Jr., who is under stress and under duress from a lot of the media outlets for saying that he implores the students at Liberty University in Lynchburg, Virginia, that they should take an opportunity to take a concealed carry class and become armed so that they can stop this from happening on their campus. We've got
several sheriffs that have said the exact same thing. If you have the ability to carry concealed, please do so.
Right, and I think that
which
this
is in
goes
stark contrast to what is coming out of the news.
Well, and this is the thing.
The New York Times.
You can only hit so many times. This is
what I'm getting at. I think right now, I think the media is in overdrive, and I think that this is right now they're seizing this as like their golden opportunity. I think right now the propaganda and the bullshit going on is at least equal to what it was in 1994, if not greater than 1994. We haven't had a Feinstein gun bill yet. I'm sure that's on the way.
No, we did. If you don't remember, we did have a Feinstein gun bill, and that came immediately after Sandy Hook. And
what I'm talking about is another one right now.
See, and this is the thing. I don't think that in a election year, because I think we can safely consider the remainder of this an election year. I think that in election year, this would not be a wise decision for Democrats who are
voting. Well, I think it's beyond that right now, because you have to look at maybe one of the paragons of what would be considered the American left communications, which would be the New York Times, owned by Arthur Sulzberger, fine name. They had a front page editorial regarding the gun menace, quote unquote, in the United States. That's the first time they've had a front page editorial since like 1920, and this is propaganda overdrive. I've been playing kind of an experiment on myself here the past couple of weeks, and I've been taking in CNN, because CNN is like Pravda. It's the party line, and it's insane the amount of anti-gun rhetoric and just knee-jerk. I mean, it's to the point of, you can buy an AK-47 over the internet and have it delivered to your home without anything, and 6,000 rounds of ammunition home. Who buys that much? And
that's part of the misinformation campaign.
Actually,
the misinformation campaign that exists within this country.
It's all propaganda.
It is, but that's part of it. The whole idea is that there's a certain class of people out there that choose to not be informed on a wide range of topics, and they are what we call the low-hanging fruit. Those are the easiest people for the different parties to pander to. Hence, and in my opinion, hence the reason why Donald Trump is so popular right now.
And I'm going to bring this Trump thing into it. So we've got Trump, who basically says shit and people go crazy. Whatever he says, as the crazier he says it, the more support he gets, and
the more exposure he gets.
He does it in 5-second sound bites too.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And he's a master of it.
But I don't even think he's a master of it. Wait up. I think somebody's telling him what to say. Somebody's a puppet master pulling the strings.
Quite possibly. You don't get to become a New York real estate magnate without going to a few bar mitzvahs. Let's just say that. So
Madison Avenue.
Right, the white shoe boys, so to speak. So his latest, I guess, soundbite is that he wants to ban Muslim immigration.
Yeah, that's where you got to
wait up. Give me a second.
Versus what you heard.
Give me a second. All right. So this is what the news is reporting. CNN is going crazy over this and comparisons to Trump to Hitler and everything possible. The discussion today went from, yes, this is horrible, but it's taking the focus off of the main issue, which is we have to get the guns off the street.
Right, and this
And
is
to
what's
me, that
driving
tells
them
me
nuts.
that is the overriding message. It is a pervasive message. And right now, the push is on. They want them bad. They
But
want
you
your
know
gun.
what? The political appetite of the country to support that push is not there, and I think it's evident by the number of sheriffs.
I don't think it matters. I
Well,
don't think
I think it
matters.
does. I think it does because you know what? Eventually, those things have to come to a vote. Hence, the reason why Obama was not able to enact any kind of executive action in the wake of this. Like I said, that whole speech was 14 minutes of. Half of it was, there's no terror threat, but yeah, we had a terrorist attack, and the other 7 minutes of, you're a bad American if you want guns. Because you remember, the whole thing here for Obama, the greatest threat to American civilization and liberty is climate change. That's why he's sitting in Paris right now. So, really, is this as bad of a threat as a lot of people are being made to believe? I don't think so. I think there's plenty of bad people out there in this country that have taken advantage of our immigration system and our lax enforcement over the last decade, for the most part. Yeah, I think that exists plenty. But when it comes right down to it, I don't believe the political pendulum that this country has is swaying in the favor of people who want to enact gun control. I think that
I would agree with you on that.
I think that
I agree also. I agree.
I think that the average person is fed up. The average person sees that the powers that be are incompetent at best and negligent at worst, and really don't understand either the threat or are willing to overlook it because there's a higher purpose for them to do so. And, when you take a look at it and you see, what, across our country's histories, we've excluded people of different nationalities. We've excluded people of certain religions, and it never really ended well. The last time we did something like that was give all the Japanese on the West Coast their own gated communities in Texas. Now, you might think that that was a good idea, but these are people who were American citizens, people who have maybe second or third generation. What we have right now is people coming wholesale to the United States from areas where we cannot vet who they are. We cannot go into their backgrounds because records are not kept. And frankly, that all falls in line with the agenda that these people have, which was to fundamentally change the background of the United States.
Then there's also the whole thing that plays into the propaganda with Americans who don't embrace the multiculturalism and the unfettered immigration are really afraid of women and children, and which is a stark contrast to the fact that we discussed it a few weeks ago. These are military-age males.
That's right. When you take a look at the drove of people that are trying to enter Hungary, coming in from Serbia and Czech and Croatia, these are lines and lines of military-age men between the ages of 15 and 45 who, by most accounts, and anybody who's been in the military the last 15 years, knows are capable of some pretty bad stuff. So it should be no surprise that when the president says he has to change the fundamental background of the United States and he has to change opinions, and he's got an attorney general in Loretta Lynch who basically says that it's her first priority to make sure that the American public doesn't give in to the fear of xenophobia. I think that shows the fundamental disconnect that this administration and its different leadership positions have with the concerns of the American people. I think that the American people are fed up in seeing these kind of events when it should have not even occurred in the first place because it's part of a flaw in the system. Why is it that we have visa waivers? Why is it that somebody from a known terrorist breeding ground, which is Pakistan, is allowed to enter the United States sight unseen? That is a large question, and I think Jay Johnson from the Department of Homeland Security should be on the carpet. I firmly believe that there's absolutely no reason why, if somebody has to go through a immigration screening from Canada, that they shouldn't have to do the same thing coming from Pakistan.
Well, tell me this. I mean, what makes this different than any of the ones that they've stopped other than they let it happen?
Well,
I mean, nobody bats 1,000. Nobody bats 1,000. And so far, up to this point, Since 9/11, they batted 1,000. They've stopped every one of them.
I don't.
I think
don't
the only
think so.
difference is
I will respectfully disagree with you on that one, Captain. I think we've had incidences where things have been stopped that were wanted to stop, but when you take a look at it, what happened right after 9/11? We had the shoe bomber.
Well,
Right?
wait up.
Nobody stopped the
Let's just
shoe
say this.
bomber.
Wait up.
The shoe
Let's just
bomber
say
was
this.
incapable of conducting himself. We
Wait,
had
wait
the
up. Let's
underwear
just say
bomber.
this. Everybody who's had any kind of terrorist bent that the FBI or the CIA has stopped, they've also been involved with them far prior.
exactly.
And
Exactly.
if not only involved with them, but primed them for the event. And
Right.
you just brought up the underwear bomber. And
Right, who was put
there's
on
a
the
whole
plane
lot of
after being identified.
Well, not only that, he had no passport. No well-dressed man put him on the plane, and he was doped up.
Well, why else would you go off and do something like that? You better be doped up if you're going to put explosives
I'll
in your
need two of those,
drawers.
please.
The only
I'll
explosive
need
drawers
two of
I
them.
had was after the number 3 at Los Betos in Tucson.
That's a
One other thing, guys. In the wake of all this, this shooting out in San Bernardino, do you know anybody that this has changed their opinion on guns one way or the other, for or against?
Actually, I've come across a few people who were very much on the fence whether or not they would actually be interested in purchasing firearms, and they've actually approached me at work in the last couple of days and said, "Hey, what's the process about going and getting a firearm? I'm concerned for my wife, and I've never done this before. How do I do it?" So I've actually
step one,
seen
you
a couple
buy
of people say,
6,000 rounds of ammunition.
at a minimum,
Well, that's interesting, because I personally don't know anybody that's really changed their opinion one way or the other. But I just read an article today that we're at a point now where there's in 2014 they claim that there's 116 guns for every 100 people in the United States. And
Right. That during the last 7 years of the Obama presidency, there's been 100 million guns sold in the United States.
right. So I mean, and here's the thing: there's lies, there's damn lies, and then there's statistics. So whether or not those are actually true, I mean, I can't attest to that because I don't.
sure. Well, sure.
I don't
Sure.
look at the statistics that try and give you an idea as far as how many guns are per 100 or even per capita. But I think a pretty accurate picture is the second part, what you said, that the number of firearm background checks that are being processed by the ATF. I think that's pretty reliable in terms of
Well, they said
brand new
on Black
sales.
Friday it was 185,000 background checks.
Right, and I think that's probably accurate for brand new sales. I would probably say
And
that the number of
that-
firearms that are changing hands privately is probably significantly higher than that.
I would agree with that. They said that the number of 185,000 firearms on Friday was enough to equip a new army.
Well, I'll tell you what. I think that Capt hit it right on the head there. I think that a good question to ask is who do you know that has changed their opinion one way or the other, and can you actually have a decent conversation about them about why they did one way or the other? Because I think that you're going to run into some people who are of the opinion that and honestly, I think this is from the elitist side of the house that says, what do you possibly, like you talking down to you, what do you possibly need a weapon for? What do you have to be afraid of, and what makes you need something like that? What kind of imminent danger do you find yourself in? And I think that on the opposite side of the coin is you have the people who are not willing to just rely on how to react to an active shooter training scenario to prepare and defend themselves. I think that if you have the opportunity, I think there's ample evidence out there to show that local law enforcement, while they may be able to go out there and string a couple of yellow tapes around your house when something bad happens, they're not going to be able to reach you in time to prevent a crime or stop a crime from happening.
No, they get there afterwards.
After the fact.
Right, exactly. And the funny thing is that when you have this, and honestly, to me, it's like a tidal wave. The sheriff of Ulster County, New York, who is a registered Democrat, is imploring the citizens of his county that if they have the ability to conceal carry to do so. And this is in New York. This is almost unheard of. This is the state that brought you the SAFE Act.
Yeah, and I guess that's a good point too. To get some people's opinion, I'm down here in the South. Michael's down here in the South also. We have a different perspective on it for sure than maybe somebody up in New York or some of these states, even California, where the gun control laws are a lot stricter than they are on us. And even the culture, where it's just part of our culture down here. We're raised with them.
Exactly. And I think that's
not so much there in the city, or the urban areas.
Because it is part of Southern heritage to be able to learn how to operate a firearm, learn how to do it responsibly, and learn how to do it accurately. Out here in Virginia, which has long been considered the home of the Confederacy, and it's very rare that you walk into somewhere aside from maybe one of the major universities that is in a metro area or up in the Northern Virginia D.C. area, which is overrun by folks of a different political background. Most folks out here in Southwest and Southwestern Virginia, they have been brought up with firearms. They understand how to handle them. They understand what the purpose is for them. And I think that there's a difference in the type of person down at the core. Do you believe that you can provide for yourself and defend yourself, or do you believe that you should have somebody else do it for you? And I think that's what it comes down to. I think
and that goes across party lines. Heck, the South is known to be Democrat, and heck, that goes across party lines real quick. Do you believe you have that right to defend yourself against any threat? And I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it,
Well, and I think you're right. And part of that is also you have the elitists who sit there with their own personal security detachments and bodyguards, and they're telling you, lecturing you, wagging their finger, saying, what do you need this for? And
this is something we discussed with the presidential candidates. We discussed Jeb Bush, who says he doesn't really recognize the right of somebody to own a firearm. He doesn't even own a firearm. Well, of course he doesn't. He's got security squads around him.
Exactly.
He doesn't need to.
And that's the funny thing. I think Jeb Bush has jumped the shark. As soon as you get Bob Dole, who is pushing probably 94 right now, to be your strongest advocate, I think your chances of actually getting.
Well, I think Jeb Bush said it the best when he said he didn't really have to put up with this kind of crap because he's got a lot of really cool stuff he could be doing right now.
Yeah,
I think that said it all right there.
But I do find it interesting that Ted Cruz has overtaken Donald Trump in latest Iowa polling.
I don't believe that.
I'll tell you, it came from Pravda Light because it came from MSNBC. So,
MSNBC will tell you that they just saw a videotape of Donald Trump raping a kitten.
And only if it was Rachel Maddow would I believe that. But this was coming from Brian Williams, who has, told his fair share of
he was there, dude. He was there. He would know. He was there.
Like I said. But it's interesting because I think if you remember back, we go back through the PrimerTime archives, I've told you, I think honestly when it comes down to it, my two picks for the Republican national nomination process are going to be Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio. And it's the campaign slogan is going to be "Si se puede." Yes, we can.
Yeah. Okay. Just let me say this. I have to say this. Ted Cruz's wife, Heidi Cruz, is a managing director for Goldman Sachs, and she's currently on hiatus during his campaign because it would look really shitty to have somebody who is actively running for president married to somebody who's working for Goldman Sachs. And Marco Rubio is in Sheldon Adelson's pocket. And Sheldon Adelson is one of the largest scumbags in the United States.
Yeah. Like I said,
Sheldon Adelson is the man trying to make war on Iran the hardest. Which means Sheldon Adelson wants you to send your child to go and die for Israel in Iran. And Marco Rubio is firmly in his pocket. So both Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio, thank you, no fuck you.
Well, I said, I understand that, but what I'm telling you is that, you're going to look at what the Republicans have to offer in this, and part of it is going to be that at some point they're going to have to take a dent in the Democratic stranglehold on the minority voters in this country who seemingly go to Democrat candidates. And I believe that this is not a strategy
There
of the
are no
Republican Party.
Democratic. There
I think
are no Democratic candidates.
no, there are. They're just not going to go anywhere aside from the one. But when it comes down to it, I think that there's enough credibility issues on that side of the House, not only with regards to the other Republicans who have very little credibility and are still sticking around. I think we still have a field of 13 or 14 candidates still in there.
What the hell is Lindsey Graham still doing?
Who in the hell you're just one flag amendment away from having Orrin Hatch throw his name in the hat.
The best I've heard is somebody that said that Lindsey Graham is full blown out gay, and that is probably the most apt description, because full blown out to me means he's lost an O-ring or the gasket is torn and it's a big leaky mess. And yeah,
we're just going to call him the challenger for the faulty O-ring.
Yeah, I don't see why half. I mean, Mike Huckabee, is he just doing that just giggles?
It's like I said. There's quite a few people that are out there that really shouldn't be running. I haven't heard anything come out of the candidates lately on gun control stances. Like I said, only
let me interrupt you real quick as we're talking about this. I did see a very interesting video regarding a candidate and the San Bernardino thing. Carly Fiorina was on Morning Joe with former Florida Congressman Joe Scarborough and daughter to the big new Brzezinski, Mika Brzezinski, and she was speaking about the San Bernardino incident, and she said that she had an ATF report saying that the two rifles, the two AR-15 style rifles, I believe one was a Smith & Wesson M&P 15, and I don't know what the other one was, were actually bought for police. That these were police-issued weapons.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
And that could be just she's saying something to cause some controversy. It could be that she is misinformed because, the Smith & Wesson M&P stands for military and police. She could be misinformed that way. But I just think it was kind of interesting that a candidate, even if she is not necessarily at the top of the pack or, in the top 5 or anything like that she would step out and say something that was so damaging to the narrative. I thought that was fairly telling. I think the whole thing is really falling apart. I think this really has made a lot of people look at, well, is this true or not? And I'm certain that it's highlighting many questions that people have over many of these incidents. I mean, we can start picking off the incidents and going with, the inconsistencies and impossibilities and downright oddities that all these things seem to have. And
here's something that's interesting, and let me make this as an aside. I'm looking here at the Dow Jones Industrials today, down 162 points at the close. Every stock I own, except for Ruger, was in negative territory. So, if that's any indication of where the American public or the investing public's fears are at, that should tell you something. Because when Apple loses,
you actually only own 5 different stocks, right?
Well, I've got a couple of the good ones. I've got a bank stock, I've got a heavy industry stock, and I've got a firearm stock. And I'll tell you this, Apple lost 5 cents today, but Ruger made 42. That probably never happens. But I think that kind of tells you that, there's maybe some truth to that. Over 1 million guns or whatever, has been purchased since Obama.
What kind of firearm would Apple? What kind of firearm would it?
They make the iBolt. I think that's sublet by Browning.
I think it would probably come in some sort of proprietary ammunition.
Yeah, it probably would, and you would have to pay 99 cents for each round.
a Podberin 9.2 or something
Yeah.
like that.
Well, Michael, we're getting late. Let's crack out some public safety announcements in the form of the 4 rules of gun safety.
All right. First rule of gun safety is every firearm is loaded until you visually and physically inspect that it is not loaded. So you confirm that. Rule number 2 is keep the muzzle pointed in a safe direction. Do not cover anything you do not wish to destroy. Rule number 3 is know what your target is, know what is beyond your target at all times. And rule number 4, the most important rule, keep your booger hook off the bang switch until you are ready to discharge the weapon. Like we've said, the push is on, and I think the propaganda is at least equal to the 1994 level of propaganda. And our only saving grace, honestly, the internet is there to give people a little bit of hope, a little bit of light of truth, maybe, in this world of front page editorial calling for the ban on assault rifles and whatnot. We don't need to add to any sort of negative. So be safe.
Yeah. Well, and now that we are getting close to the Christmas season, I think we're roughly at the T minus 26 days until the last shopping day before Christmas.
You're all getting lottery.
Not 16. I mean 16 days there. No, that's public education math for you. What are we looking at getting toy wise for us? Captain, what have you been looking at? Maybe something for your son?
No, I tell you, I just bought him a new scope for his rifle here recently, so that's kind of going to be his Christmas gift for it, outdoor wise, I guess. And other than that, with him getting ready to move out, it's going to be more geared toward that end of the stuff, I think.
He gets a coffee pot.
Well, I think that it's going to be interesting. You're going to see the different websites that are offering their daily deals. Some of the things that I'm seeing getting advertised quite heavily is, you're seeing the ammo really, really getting pushed right now. Walmart is stocking a lot of ammo. I still don't see any 22 in there, but apparently it's at Gander Mountain and Dick's Sporting Goods.
It's a Bass Pro Shop. It's at Academy. 22 long rifle is out there.
Right. So, I think that the big thing right now, if I was to pick something up, and probably should have done it a little earlier in the hunting season, was to get a good rangefinder. I will recommend that people stay away from Wild Game Innovations and their Halo line. I've personally owned one of those, and it crapped out on me, and then sending it back to the company did absolutely no good, and they told me to go pound sand. So, spend a little bit of money, get yourself a Nikon. I believe the line is Aculon. You're going to spend a little bit, but you're going to have it for a while. I've got Nikon glass on rifles that I've had for years and has never failed. So,
and get a spare battery for your rangefinder. Mine went out on me in a little town up in East Texas, and the look on some of those people's faces when I whooped that little battery out. Well, try the Family Dollar.
Yeah.
That
must be one of the batteries.
So, I was bow hunting that weekend, so it was really important for me to have it there. I mean, I can guess pretty good, but boy, being able to throw that rangefinder up, know for sure is nice. And another thing I like about that rangefinder, just riding through the pasture and spotting something in the distance, maybe just a tree, and say, hey, how far do you think that tree is? And both of you guessed, or however many people, everybody take their best guess and throw up the rangefinder and confirm it. It's just good practice.
Yeah, definitely, and I agree. I think I use a rangefinder when I have one available. I use it more often to get a known distance on something rather than pointing directly at the thing I'm going to shoot, because it takes too much time to transition from the rangefinder to the glass. Sure. And if I know in the area where that individual item is, I'll be much more apt to make a very quick decision on whether or not to pull the trigger. So, Michael, anything you're looking at?
I'm looking at getting 6,000 rounds in a para-style assault rifle. Which, awesome. By the way, that's Pepe Le Pew 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 Pew.
Yeah. Well, I want to say thanks to Captain for coming on with us. Appreciate having you. And Michael, as always.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Gringo, it was wonderful having you. Nick, thank you very much. We got to give a shout out to UCY.tv. This an incredible platform.
Patriots do. Fight good,
Plenty of
fight
great
good,
programs.
fight
Thanks a
good,
lot.
fight good, fight good, fight good.